So, does my audio work now? That is the question. Let me just send out a tweet here. Hang on with me. Okay. Where's the hyperviolence, not complaining mind? All right. Let's see. Okay, I hear you, says Urban Planner. Okay. I'm glad. As I say, I've been thinking that I've been using the same cord for this microphone for what, 6 years or something like that, and it's traveled a lot, and it's been rolled and unrolled and bent, and it's probably needs to be replaced, and I'll see whether I can do that tomorrow. But I'm rather worried that this cord might be difficult to get a hold of. I guess I'll try Best Buy. So, where were we in the show? Just let me scroll down here. Let me scroll down, and okay, we'll go here. We will go here. And let's go to William Briggs. The race doesn't exist and only whites are racist fallacy. An excerpt from Everything You Believe is Wrong. Well, I think it was definitively proved by that real estate company that, since blacks are 12.5% of the American population, by definition, they can only commit 12.5% of the crime. I mean, that's science, right? So this is an excerpt from William Briggs' book, Everything You Know Is Wrong. Your father looked at your mother and said, "That's one fine-looking woman." Your mother reciprocated. You ensued. You and every you out there are a mix of your parents and of your environment, but you also contain a soul, an ineffable, immaterial, irremovable component of you. That soul makes you unlike anybody else, at least in part, even if you are a twin sharing all your genes with another. Even if you don't believe that, because you share bits and pieces of your parents and most of the same environment too, you are more like them and your brothers and sisters than you are to people outside your family. Your family is more like your aunts and uncles and cousins than to other families, and your distant relatives are more like you than distant peoples. Most scientists agree with these facts. Maybe not woke scientists under the grip of the equality delusion, but most scientists. The agreement means little to nothing, of course, because these are facts. Because you are most like your parents and your family are more like your extended family than others, race exists. Yet because we are each of us men, there is only one race, the human race. There is no contradiction. It only seems there is because the word race is overloaded, to borrow a term from computer programming. Race means different things depending on the context. It's when the word is thrown around lacking that context, or when the context rapidly shifts during conversation, that troubles arise, and the equivocation fallacy, aka one thing into another fallacy, exists. Because groups of families have stayed in the relative vicinity of each other over long periods of time, peoples grow to be more like themselves than those living elsewhere. This goes on long enough, and it doesn't take all that long. In the end, we have a race or races of people who differ from others in certain ways. The simple fact, like the facts above, never confused anybody before the race doesn't exist and only whites are racist fallacy became popular. But since it and the equality fallacy have become debased dogma, more than a few academics have taken to saying race doesn't exist. That's false if they mean there aren't groups which largely share sets of characteristics, and true if they mean humanity as a whole. But these academics aren't that sharp and do deny the existence of groups that share characteristics, except for whites, who share only evil traits. One objection is that race is superficial, that we can only tell peoples apart because they look different. I answer this by quoting the movie Desk Set from 1957, which has computer expert Spencer Tracy giving an intelligence test to research librarian Katharine Hepburn. Tracy asks, "What is the first thing you notice about a person?" To which Hepburn replies with perspicacity whether that person is a man or a woman. Why looks can't count to discriminate between persons, or that looks are wrongly called superficial, are both bad arguments. Another objection is to point to various genetic measures and say something about their variability between and inside races. These arguments are always pointless. Suppose every race only differs by a set of alleles on one gene only. Then, given the wide variety of characteristics we observe from all history, the worst we could say is G. That is one important and influential gene. This objection is thus the quantity fallacy that differences in phenotype can't be great because differences between genotypes aren't. A third objection is soft boundaries. The critic will point to individuals who are best classed as a different race than the ones the individuals identify with. The critic says the boundaries between races are somewhat fluid, especially in time, and not rigid, and that the races themselves undergo changes. William Briggs continues, I answered by saying, yes, that's all true, and that this confirms there are races rather than denies it. Only hardcore racial purists say that there are absolute inflexible measures that classify races. Anyway, there isn't a man pretending to be a woman, actual woman, or child who doesn't believe in race in practice. Denying race is something that takes place only in theory as a way for academics to signal to one another their virtue. Further, everybody knows this, including the deniers. And that is an excerpt from William M. Briggs' new book, Everything You Believe is Wrong. And let's go to Eugippius. See if there's anything new. Now, we covered that yesterday. So let's go to the Substack of a man whose initials are AB. And again, he has a new book, which is called Pandemia, which is available for $2.99 on Kindle. A new poll confirms most Americans are done with COVID and vaccine mandates, and Omicron hysteria has left the unvaccinated unafraid while the boosted are terrified. True story. On Monday, I told you I thought the United States was moving past COVID with or without the White House and the media. Today, a new poll offers hard evidence of the shift. More than half of Americans now oppose vaccine mandates, according to the poll, which Monmouth University released this morning. About 60% say they are worn out from COVID. So I asked the question on Twitter, are schools, by which I mean elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, are they really drug supermarkets? Well, Alex Berenson writes, a surprising and hopeful finding about teenage drug and alcohol use during the pandemic. A new survey suggests use by American adolescents plunged in 2021, contrary to the increase in overdose deaths. Eighth graders and high school students reported far lower levels of drug use in 2021 than previous years, a new national study finds. Alcohol, cannabis, and nicotine use all declined sharply, even as most schools remained closed and other measures of mental health declined. So did the use of harder drugs, such as cocaine and LSD. In perhaps the most surprising finding, cannabis use by 8th and 10th graders fell almost 40%. Only 17% of 10th graders used cannabis in 2021 compared to 28% the previous year. The findings contradict both anecdotal reports and the fact that American drug overdose deaths rose almost 30% in 2020 and have continued to soar. They will top 100,000 in 2021, mainly from opioids, 5 times their level 2 decades ago. But the survey, called Monitoring the Future, is well respected, and drug researchers generally view it as at least directionally accurate. The University of Michigan has conducted for almost 50 years for the National Institutes of Health. Berenson comments, the reason for the decline is unclear. With schools closed, students may simply have had less access to drugs, particularly more expensive and harder to find drugs such as cocaine. Using at home may also have been difficult. But broader societal changes may have also played a role. Some students may have also seen for themselves the severe mental health problems that heavy early cannabis use can cause. In any case, after endless bad news about teens and mental health, this survey offers a ray of hope. I was talking about Pete Davidson on yesterday's show before I was rudely interrupted by technical problems. And I didn't mention that Pete Davidson has suffered from severe depression for many years, which he was treating for many years with marijuana. with copious amounts of marijuana, which is about the stupidest thing possible, because marijuana use is heavily correlated to paranoia and depression, also psychosis. But apparently, weed is like aspirin. It's the wonder drug that works wonders. Yeah, Boris Johnson. This is from Oliver J.J. Lane at Breitbart. The United Kingdom received yet another direct address from the Prime Minister Wednesday evening, with Boris Johnson making a return to wartime metaphors that were so common in the early part of the pandemic, while his top scientist appealed to the public to stop socializing now to enjoy Christmas. Boasting of the speed at which the United Kingdom was giving third doses, Boris Johnson said from Downing Street Wednesday that per capita, British people were thrice jabbed at a rate twice of that seen in the European Union and over twice of that in the United States. Yet this was still not enough, he said, as the wave of Omicron threatens to roll over the whole of our United Kingdom. Johnson said hospitalizations were up 10%, and at 170,000, the number of new coronavirus cases detected was the highest ever in the United Kingdom, and that's because viruses work. Johnson said, promoting the booster third shot campaign, you can get jabbed right now, and it's absolutely vital that you do because the wave of Omicron continues to roll over our whole of our United Kingdom. The Blitz spirit. Are we going to hear more about that? Look, the British people are not the same as they were in 1940. No, they're very different indeed. But that doesn't stop people like Boris Johnson from pretending that nothing has changed, in 80 years. And, this is funny. Moderna chief warns Delta and Omicron could combine to create monster virus. You mean like a biological Fukushima? Is that what? Moderna's chief medical officer has warned that the Delta and Omicron variants of COVID-19 could combine to create a monster virus. Here we go again. Paul Burton made the comments while addressing the House of Commons Technologies and Science Committee members Tuesday. Burton claimed it was possible for someone to contract both variants at the same time, which certainly gives an opportunity for the two viruses to what we call recombinate, meaning they could begin to share genes and swap genes over. This could certainly lead to worse COVID-19 symptoms than usual, according to Burton, who added that it really is important to think about it given the rapid spread of Omicron. And let's take a look at lockdown skeptics. Well, dailyskeptic.org, as it's now known. What will happen if schools are forced to shut again? The prospect of yet more closures is leaving both parents and children utterly exasperated by the overreaction, writes Catherine Flett in The Telegraph. Man killed himself after being made redundant by COVID-hit golf club. A veteran greenkeeper killed himself after being made redundant by the golf club, where he had worked for 33 years after they made financial cuts because of the effects of the pandemic, an inquest heard, reports the Daily Mail. FDA's forced hand drops Pfizer's bombshell safety document. The highly confidential Pfizer documents, which have been synonymous with the extreme lack of transparency revealed by the actions of pivotal government agencies, are finally being revealed, writes Sonia Elijah, who examines the information previously hidden from the public in trial site. And Daniel Hannan tweets, the restrictions were supposed to be a temporary response to a one-off situation, yet they are in danger of becoming a standard tool for governments. Plan B restrictions risk killing public music venues, a charity warns. Well, no, I mean, you can watch YouTube. Why would anyone need to go, to see actual musicians on the stage? That is so 20th century. Danish study confirms that natural immunity protects better against infection than the vaccines. And this is from Noah Carl. Last week, I wrote about a second major study finding that natural immunity protects better against infection than the Pfizer vaccine. Both this study and the earlier one were from Israel. And while there's every reason to believe the results generalize to other populations, it's always good to have data from multiple countries. We now have those data in the form of a study published by the Statens Serum Institute in Denmark. And anti-lockdown tycoon Elon Musk named Times Person of the Year. This is interesting. And this is from Toby Young. After nearly half of conservative backbenchers revolted against Plan B yesterday, Boris Johnson has agreed that if any further restrictions are imposed between now and the new year, Parliament will be recalled. But it is probable that if he attempts to impose Plan C, i.e. a national lockdown, not only would he face an even greater rebellion, but it would trigger a leadership challenge, and not before time. Sean Bailey resigns from London Assembly role after being caught partying last winter. The former Tory London mayoral candidate, Sean Bailey, has resigned from his post as chair of the London Assembly's Policing and Crime Committee shortly after a photograph emerged showing Bailey to have attended a party which was held in violation of last winter's COVID restrictions. I read about this fellow when he was running for mayor, and it's just the Conservative Party in the UK evidently decided we need a black face up front. Who do we have? Well, there's this Sean Bailey fellow. Is he a man of some accomplishment? No, but he is black, and we've already decided we need to put a black face up front. And, I have talked previously about Canadian artistic luminary, Tory Lanez, who is actually called Daystar Shua Peterson, or so Wikipedia claims. Okay. And this fellow, well, he has more than one nickname. And I'm going to tell this story again because it just makes me laugh like a drain. Daystar also goes by the name Argentina Fargo. In an interview, he said, "When I put foreign and banking together, it's like foreign money. I'm a Canadian dude walking around America. When you look at me, it's like looking at foreign money. So I call myself Argentina Fargo, like foreign money." How much weed do you have to smoke, I wonder, in order to end up talking like that? This is from Agence France Presse. A rapper who allegedly told Megan Thee Stallion to dance bitch before shooting at the singer's feet after a Hollywood party was ordered to stand trial in California Tuesday. The Savage singer was in an SUV with Tory Lanez driving away from a party hosted by Kylie Jenner when the pair got into an argument in June last year. How long does it take cases to come to court in the state of California? A bikini-clad Megan Thee Stallion, who, despite calling herself a stallion, is a woman and not a man, demanded to be let out of the Cadillac and then heard Lanez shout, "Dance, bitch," as he opened fire with a handgun, LA Police Department Detective Ryan Stogner told a judge. The Hot Girl Summer singer told police she was bleeding profusely from her feet and that she fell to the ground and crawled to a nearby driveway. Lanez then emphatically apologized for what he did and offered to drive her home, the court heard, with the rapper later telling officers he had offered her money not to say anything about the shooting. Given that Megan Thee Stallion is a considerably bigger star than Tory Lanez, I don't think that offering a bribe was probably the right idea. Police responding to reports of a shooting later stopped the vehicle and took Megan Thee Stallion to a hospital where she initially told doctors she had hurt her feet on broken glass. Several bullet fragments were removed from her feet, but some remain, and she told the detective that she had difficulty walking in certain shoes. She told Stogner that she was scared Lanez was going to get into trouble, which is what normally happens when you are observed shooting someone repeatedly. But, you know, as they say, snitches get stitches. But she later alleged that he had shot her. Investigating officers found 4 spent bullet casings at the scene of the alleged shooting. Why alleged? I don't think it's confirmed. Megan Thee Stallion subsequently posted a video to Instagram Live in which he said, "Tory shot me, you shot me, and you got your publicist and your people lying. Stop lying." Lanez, a 29-year-old Canadian whose real name is Daystar Peterson, has denied wrongdoing. "I have all faith in God to show that love to all my fans and people that have stayed true to me and know my heart. A charge is not a conviction," he wrote on Twitter last year. He also addressed the claims on his 5th album, Daystar, wondering how someone could get shot in your foot, don't hit no bones or tendons. Lanez was charged in October 2020 with 1 count each of assault with a semi-automatic firearm and carrying a loaded, unregistered firearm in a vehicle. That is part of the rapper starter pack. Carrying a loaded, unregistered firearm in your car. He faces more than 22 years in jail if convicted. At Tuesday's hearing, a judge refused a defense application to dismiss the charges. Lanez is on bail and is set to be arraigned January 13th. You know, it's almost as if these women who get involved with the rappers, that all that stuff he says, you know, on his tracks, that just, you know, that's just big talk. They're not really the kind of people that would shoot someone over an argument over a Kardashian. No. He is a God-loving, gentle man. Argentina Fargo. KMG edits as he reads. Old school, says Adon Willis. Okay. The Lucifer is the morning star and Jesus the day star. Got it, says Oscar Ito. Clydesdale butt, says Chogokin 666. I don't. Yeah. Okay. No, it just, how long has this Megan Thee Stallion woman been around? About 2 years. And it's almost like a memo was sent out. You've got to get behind this woman. She is, she's representing women in the rap stakes, which apparently had never happened before, even though everyone knows that it has. Okay. Let's see. What? I don't know. Kim Crimson. We're talking about Kim Crimson. So sick of fans sticking their phones in the air like they just don't care, says Don Willis. Want to do a Greek alphabet variant dance, kind of like YMCA to make peace, says Quacholango. I still can't help but think of Futurama every time they say Omicron, says Divot the Gnome, and that's exactly the same with me. Every time I say the word Omicron, I want to add Persei 8. The Delta and Omicron combine to create a Marvel supervillain, says Oscar Toe. LOL, the Kevin variant voice, says Divot the Gnome. I don't know what that's referring to. KMG looks a bit rattled this evening. As I say, I'm going to have to buy a new cable, but the problem is whether I can get one, you know, immediately. Yeah, let's talk about housing. Houses are exceedingly expensive in my country of Canada, despite the Canadian economy, well, not doing very well. You know, even before they decided to smash it with COVID panic. So this is Rachel Gilmore at Global News. Challenges fueling Canada's hot housing market will take years to fix. This, according to Chrystia Freeland, who is the finance minister. That's the latest from the government's fiscal update, which provides a peek into the country's finances and looks ahead to the coming months. Quote, in addition to rising inflationary pressures, strong housing demand throughout the pandemic combined with limited supply has led to significantly higher house prices across the country, unquote. Well, that's a lie or a partial lie, because as has been pointed out, the housing supply in Vancouver has exploded in decades, but it hasn't had any effect. It hasn't, lowered prices. Now, I read through this story, and then I just to confirm, I did a control F. Is the word immigration, does that appear anywhere in the story? No, it doesn't. And I tweeted Rachel Gilmore saying, why? Any particular reason why the word immigration doesn't appear in your story? That you're bringing in, the Canadian government plans to bring in over 1.2 million permanent immigrants over the next 3 years. Big, big boost, like a 60% boost. And they all have to live somewhere. They all have to live somewhere. And so the result, I mean, it's every time I go back to Vancouver, which is not all that often, it's really shocking because it's like Hong Kong now. They're just stacking people higher and higher in the sky, which is not good for people on many different levels. And of course, now it's being suggested, that single family dwellings are evil, that they're racist or some such thing, because we want to stack people higher and higher in the sky. And the same thing is happening in Victoria. I've lived in Victoria for 20 years now. And when I moved here, there was a height limit of 5 stories, which meant, among other things, that you could see a church steeples and spires for miles. Well, that's not possible anymore because condos, higher and higher condos. And it's just not good. But for, someone at Global News to write a story about high housing prices and how high are they? Let's see. In Vancouver, benchmark home prices recorded a 1% increase in November compared with October, according to the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. In Toronto, its Real Estate Board found average home prices climbed 2.5% higher in November, reaching $1,163,000, an almost 22% jump from November 2020. Mustafa Askari, chief economist with the Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy at the University of Ottawa, acknowledged housing affordability is a major challenge. I'm not sure if there is an easy solution for this, he said. The government said it's working with the provinces, territories, and municipalities to unlock and create more housing supply. How about we stop immigration cold? Immigration moratorium. Canada is full. That may sound nonsensical because Canada is a huge country, but most of Canada is uninhabited and uninhabitable. People go to the cities, and we don't need any more immigrants. I mean, oh sure, if some Nobel Prize winner wants to move to Canada, 5,000 immigrants a year would take care of any possible problems. And of course, that would mean that Canadian businesses would have to start paying Canadians reasonable wages. But no, of course, we don't want that. That would be, prices, wages have to be kept down. In fact, Alan Greenspan let the cat out of the bag 20 years ago when he made the connection explicit. He said that immigration levels in the United States must be kept high in order to keep wages low. Now, why Alan Greenspan would be upset by the prospect of Americans earning higher wages is an interesting question, don't you think? Here is a story from Revolver.news. The Rhodes Scholars are back, and they're still proof of America's laughingstock elite. I've compared being granted a Rhodes Scholarship as like the mark of Cain. And I like to, look at Wikipedia entries for people. Oh, yeah, Rhodes Scholarship, that's a sure giveaway. Also, attending the Kennedy School at Harvard. If all the people who'd attended the Kennedy School at Harvard or were given Rhodes Scholarships were exiled from public life, the world would be a much better place with immediate effect. Late last year, the Rhodes Trust capped off a cartoonish 2020 by naming the most preposterous set of Rhodes Scholars in American history. 21 out of 32 scholars that year were of color, 10 were black, one was an illegal immigrant, one was non-binary, and virtually all of them were distinguished by a fanatical commitment to left-wing ideological fads of the moment. It was a worthy end to 2020. In a year symbolized by racial reckoning and the visible decay of every American institution, one of the most thoroughly gutted and skin-suited once great relics of the old America delivered a worshipful tribute to open borders, reparations, and diversity über alles. I think last year's class might actually have embarrassed them a little bit, a former Rhodes Scholar told Revolver. Embarrassed or not, this year's class is again a murderer's row of elite college graduates whose chief interests are almost wholly aligned with the chosen values of the moment in the globalist American empire. And improbably enough, 2021's Rhodes Scholars may be an even bigger indictment of the supposed elite that appoints them. This year's class is less in your face and less fanatically focused on diversity, but thanks to that, they are more authentically diverse and show the wide scope of America's political obsessions. This year's class is still amply racialized and alphabet peopled, but it's also more than 2/3 women, a record. And in a fitting marker of how real freedom of thought is vanishing from American public life, the Rhodes press release proudly trumpets the work one scholar has done to suffocate speech even more. Quote, Tricia N. Prabhu, Naperville, is a senior at Harvard College where she majors in government. Tricia is the founder and CEO of Rethink Inc., an app that proactively detects offensive digital content and gives users a chance to reconsider posting it. At Oxford, she plans to pursue a Master of Science in Social Science of the Internet and a Master's of Public Policy. In 1902, Cecil Rhodes instructed his executors to find men who exhibited, quote, the qualities of manhood, truth, courage, devotion to duty, sympathy for the protection of the weak, kindliness, unselfishness, and fellowship, unquote. 119 years later, his will honors school marms creating apps that tell people what they can post on the internet. Rhodes's will also asked that scholarship recipients be chosen based on moral force of character and of instincts to lead. For the Rhodes Trust of 2021, though, leadership is displayed solely through rigid adherence to the most up-to-date pages of the Progressive Catechism. From the Rhodes Trust, Sydney, spelled S-Y-D-N-Y, because of course, Sydney A. Scott, has done significant work on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, including developing training for dozens of universities participating in the Women's Network. Sydney also founded the Amendment Project, an organization mobilizing high school students around the issue of reparations, and worked to help secure passage of a local reparations resolution in Tulsa. Tariq, spelled Tawreak J. Gamble-Eddington. With Tariq Gamble Eddington, do you really need that initial there? I don't think so. It seems superfluous, He is currently completing a Master of Philosophy in Race, Ethnicity, Conflict at Trinity College, Dublin, where he is a Mitchell Scholar. Ty was a campus leader at Union College, serving as president of both the Black Student Union and Union Pride, and helping found a My Brother's Keeper program. He was also named to the steering committee for the Presidential Initiative on Race, Power, and Privilege. Samantha C.W. O'Sullivan founded and led a student organization that promotes activism related to the legacy of slavery and has published articles on dress codes and bias against Black girls. Do you know about this? That dress codes are racist? Because, if you want to wear a skirt hiked up, pretty much so that there's no skirt, or you want to have your shirt open, like to the navel, and the school tells you that, no, you can't come to school looking like this, that's racist because apparently it's intrinsic to a Black culture. I'm only repeating what I have read. Samantha C.W. O'Sullivan is fascinated by how different languages, including the language of the African diaspora, Gullah, provide insights into different perceptions of the physical universe. Ooh. Amy B. What's with all these middle initials? Amy B. Clasey's honors thesis focus on racial disparities in death penalty sentencing in the U.S. She has pursued multiple legal internships, including with the Office of the Federal Public Defender for the Northern District of Florida and the American Bar Association Death Penalty Representation Project. At Oxford, Amy plans to pursue a DPhil in criminology and focus her research on wrongful conviction and the execution of innocent persons. And yeah, there's something common to these names that they seem to, well, they decided, no, we're not going to give white men Rhodes scholarships anymore. A Revolver continues. This is the Rhodes Scholarship as it exists today and as it will be every year for many years to come. Last year, Revolver quoted a former scholar who described how changes to the scholarship process created a woke stranglehold. In the past, 50 separate state committees chose finalists, after which 8 regional committees selected 4 scholarship winners apiece. Now the process is only single step, with 16 regional committees picking 2 winners with no state finalist phase. This is a bigger change than it seems, she said. The state committees under the old system were a bit more constrained to seek some kind of universal sense of excellence because they couldn't just pick the winners. They had to pick the candidates from their state they thought would also impress the regional committee. Then, on the other side, the regional committee was constrained to picking from among the 12-ish candidates their states sent up. The scholar noted that under the old system, even if a committee wanted to choose an underqualified candidate for the sake of diversity, they tended to only make one such pick among the 4 winners. Under the new system, with 16 regional committees, there is still a tendency to make at least one diverse pick, but now such winners comprise half of all selections rather than just 1/4. We touched base, Revolver says, with that former scholar again after this year's announcement. The Rhodes Trust remains unable to balance a class properly, she said. It used to be that they managed to produce classes with a true diversity of interests and, yes, even demographics, which they don't anymore. The new single-tier nomination system causes them to select activists for some particular cause or another, instead of the all-round excellence that characterized Rhodes scholars of yesteryear. Just look at probably the most famous young Rhodes scholar, Bing, 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 Pete Buttigieg. Would he have been selected in 2020 or 2021? He's a white male with pretty conventional political interests by the standards of these latest classes. He's not an activist now and certainly wasn't when selected. You know, it was my understanding that those who were awarded Rhodes Scholarship, that there was a athletic component to this. And then I found out that Bill Clinton had been a Rhodes Scholar, and I thought, what possible athletic interest could Bill Clinton have? This is a man who sweats through his clothes when, or he was, when he'd get up off the couch to walk to the bathroom. Ironically, the intense political obsession at Rhodes means that it is losing its ability to identify the real political leaders of the future, Revolver's source said. Yeah. So just a warning there about Rhodes scholars. I still haven't shaken the reference, says David the Gnome. Let's see. What do we have here? No, says Don Willis. I have in this sealed envelope the most evil woman ever. Is Richard Spencer a Rhodes scholar? I don't think so. Didn't he get a master's degree from Duke University? That's my understanding. Let's just look this up here. Okay, let's see. Grew up in Dallas. He attended St. Mark's School of Texas, very prestigious. Then Colgate University for 1 year before transferring to the University of Virginia. He received a BA in English Literature and Music from UV, and in 2003, a Master's of Arts in the Humanities from the University of Chicago. Okay. He was a PhD student in modern European intellectual history at Duke. His former website says he did not complete his PhD at Duke in order to pursue a life of thought crime. Okay, what else do we have here? Brunig is going to write the next Bobby McGee. Are we talking about the bespectacled columnist who posts very weird things on Twitter, leading to a whole thread about her marriage being endangered? I see she got her teeth fixed. David Wright says, not a Rhodes Scholar, but Sharon Stone reportedly has a 150 IQ. Yeah, that might explain something. There seems to be something of a cutoff point there on people with an IQ of 150 or higher seem to find it very difficult to get along with other people. Is Emily Bruning a Rhodes Scholar? Yeah, I don't know about that. Hang on. I don't know. And of course, people have trouble spelling her name, as do I. And I don't think that's the right spelling. So no, that will have to remain a mystery. Metal Mike, hello, says, have you read Brzezinski's 1970 book in which he predicted what's happening now, global technocracy? No. Oh, that would be Zbigniew Brzezinski. Okay. I have read Brzezinski, but it was a long time ago. Long time ago. BREU. Okay. BREUNIG. Okay. Nope. Either she doesn't have a Wikipedia entry, which appears unlikely, or that is not the correct spelling. So no, perhaps I'll have to reacquaint myself with Brzezinski. Terrence Malick, up in my Yop 3 Rhodes. Richard Chamberlain said that Sharon Stone was very smart and she wouldn't stop telling you that. Kevin, have you read anything by your fellow Canadian Robertson Davies or Davis? I don't know how it's pronounced. Again, a long time ago. A long time ago. Let's talk about what's coming up on the show. Tomorrow is Theater Thursday, and we have a Christmas adjacent film. As I previously explained, it turns out, perhaps strangely, that there are not very many movies about the Nativity. But there are a lot of movies which take place, at least partially, during Christmas, and one of them is by Ernst Lubitsch from 1940, called The Shop Around the Corner. And some say that it was James Stewart's first great performance. It also stars Margaret Sullivan, who's delightful in this film. She did not have a happy life, which I suppose is common to many people in Hollywood. She died of an overdose of barbiturates at the age of 50. She was married to Henry Fonda, William Wyler, and Leland Hayward, plus one other husband. And I have a rule about this: 3. Any marriages beyond 3 are risible. You notice that Donald Trump stopped at 3? That was wise of him. I think that when you go past 3, people are snickering when they see you. And on December 23rd, which of course is 2 days before Christmas, I will be talking about the SCTV Christmas special from 1981. And on the book club, on this Friday, I'm going to be discussing Amy Chua's book, Political Tribes. And on Christmas Eve, I'm going to be reading a Willa Cather short story called The Burglar's Christmas. And on Music Monday, December the 20th, I am going to be talking about Bob Stanley of Saint Etienne fame, his book, Yeah, 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 The Story of Modern Pop. So that's it for today. I'll be back on the air tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, hopefully with a new microphone cord, because it makes me nervous when I think that the audio is going to stop at any point. And then, of course, I have to restart the stream. I'm going to lose a lot of people, but let's see if I can get this fixed tomorrow. Again, 4 p.m. tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you'd like to make a donation to the live stream, my PayPal account is Kevin_Grace at hotmail.com. Once again, Kevin_Grace at hotmail.com. If you are in Canada, donations may be made to the live stream directly via Interact at kevingrace@shaw.ca. And as always, I leave you with this. In these days of social atomization and civilizational collapse, I do dearly wish that you, my dear viewers and listeners, manage to forge a genuine human connection in order to ease the burden. Good night.